Hey guys, I'm here in the Narrative Content Examples hall, and this shows off all the awesome things that Narrative can do for your game, and you can actually download this for free in the description. But today we're going to take the boring old third-person template in Unreal Engine, and we're going to add our first dialogue, our first quest, and then we're going to thread it all together by having an NPC that gives us a quest that we have to do for him. I'll also show you how to use the new cinematic dialogues, create dialogues with multiple characters in them, and even inject variables into dialogues with the new dialogue variables. Then, to top it all off, I'm going to show you how easy it is to have Narrative save the entire state of your game with 2 blueprint nodes using the save and load system. Narrative has gotten really powerful in the latest 2.5 update, so I can't wait to show you what it can do for your game. If you don't have Narrative yet, the Marketplace link will be in the description. Then once you have Narrative, just install it to your engine in the Epic Games Launcher by clicking Install the Engine. Now I'm going to open up Unreal Engine 5, I'm going to go to Games, and then click on Third Person, and I'm going to use a C++ project for this video. Once your project is open, just go to Edit, and then go to Plugins, and then just search for Narrative, and then make sure that it is enabled. Okay, so with Narrative enabled, let's get started. So if we go to the Third Person Blueprints folder, here's our character. And I'm just going to press Ctrl D to make a NPC character. So we'll just call that BP underscore NPC. And we'll open up our character. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open the full blueprint editor and just add a narrative component to the player. Generally, you'd probably want to put that on the player controller, but it works pretty good on the player. And it'll do for this video. So we're going to drag narrative in, and then on begin play, I'm going to add the default narrative UI to the screen. Now, you can make your own quest and dialogue UI if you want, but the default UI is a really good place to get started. So we'll just add that, plug the narrative component in, and then add to viewport. And then we'll compile and save. So let's try making our first dialogue. I've just made a narrative folder and dialogues, and I'm just going to put it in there. You can put it wherever you like. And I'm going to call it Philip, because we're going to make a character called Philip. So if we open that up, a dialogue is basically like any blueprint you've ever used before. The only difference is it has this dialogue graph that you can open up. And this is basically where you define the content of your dialogue. And designing a dialogue is really easy. So Philip has some stuff that he will say, and if you drag out, you can make him say more things. So you can add more lines of dialogue. You could say like, how are you? And then at any point, if you want the player to be able to say things back to Philip, you can just add player responses. And you can add as many player responses as you like. So if Philip says, how are you? We might say good, or we might say, you know, bad. And then if you say good, he might say why, and so on. You get the point. So I'm going to delete all of this, and a good tip is to leave the root node empty. It allows you to do some cool things. I'll show you later on, but we're just going to leave it empty. And if we drag out and add a line for Philip, I'm going to say, I need to make a cake for the king, but I don't have time to find the ingredients. Can you help me find them? And then we'll add some options for the player. The player can either say, sure, I'll help, or sorry, I can't right now. So we're going to go back into the character, and all you have to do to begin your dialogue is drag narrative in and do the begin dialogue here. And because we have the UI on the screen, it will display our dialogue. I'm going to select Philip's dialogue here, compile and save, and make sure to compile and save the dialogue blueprint as well. And let's play it. And you can see when I jump into the game here, it has Philip's dialogue, and I can select some options. So let's take that NPC we made, and we'll actually drag the NPC into the level. And I'm just going to change the mesh to a male one because it is a character called Philip, so we'll use a male model here. And let's open up our NPC. So I want it to start the dialogue when you run up to the NPC instead of just automatically starting it. And so I'm going to delete the begin dialogue from the character here. Go into my NPC, and I'll just add a big sphere. So when the player walks into the sphere, it's going to start the dialogue. I'll make my sphere about 150 big. And I'll just move it up a little bit, and then I'll scroll down to the bottom and then add a on component begin overlap. And so we need to get the narrative component from my player. And so you can do get component by class, but narrative actually comes with something, get narrative component from target. So you just give it an actor and it will grab the narrative component for you. So it's a lot easier that way. We'll check if it's valid. And if it is, we'll begin dialogue. Super simple. And we'll promote the dialogue to a variable so we can make each NPC have its own one. And I'll just click the little eye over here as well and compile and save. Now, if you click on the NPC, you'll be able to search for dialogue and then click the drop down and select Philip as the dialogue. And then we'll save and jump into the game. And when I run up to Philip, should start the dialogue. There you go. So we've made a very simple dialogue, and we'll make that more complex later, but let's make our first quest now as well. So we're going to make a folder for the quest, and I'm going to go to narrative, quest, and I will call this quest Philip's Assistant. Quests are very similar to dialogues in that you have an event graph, but you also have a quest graph that you design the quest in. And we won't worry about persistent tasks right now, we'll just worry about this quest start node. And so if you drag up from this quest start node, you'll be able to add tasks. And we haven't really made any tasks yet. There are 2 that come with narrative, but we're going to want to make some of our own. So in this quest, you need to find some items, and in lots of quests, you'll need to find items. So let's make a task for that. So we'll go to task, and we'll just call it find item. And now that you've done that, inside of the quest editor, you'll actually be able to drag out and you'll now have the find item task here. And essentially what we've done is we can now make quests where the player has to find certain items. And you can make more ones like kill monster, you know, find location or whatever tasks you want in your game. And so we're going to make our very first quest. So we'll select find item. And I'm going to say that the player needs to find an egg. That's the objective that they have to complete. And for the description, I'll just say find an egg. And then we'll delete this, and then I'll just drag out and say succeed the quest. So essentially what I've done here is I've designed a quest where you need to find an egg, and that's all you have to do to complete this quest. So it's a very, very simple quest. So I'll compile and save it, and then go into my character, and to begin the quest, all you need to do, exact same as dialogue, so you just do begin quest, and select the quest that we made, and then plug it in. And let's hit play and try it out. And you can see it says started my new quest, and it says find an egg. So now we have to make some pickups, so all I'm going to do is make a new blueprint, actor, and I'm just going to call it BP underscore pickup. And we'll open it up. So the first thing I'm going to add is a sphere collision. I'm going to add a text render. And I'll just add a rotating movement to make it spin around as well. And so we want it so that when the player walks into the sphere, it takes the pickup. So if we click on the sphere and then add component begin overlap, it's going to be just like we did with the NPC. We just want to get the narrative component is valid. But this time we're going to use complete narrative task. And this node is really cool. If I select the task, it actually asks for the name of the item as the argument. I'm just going to right click and make that a variable, and I'll click a little I there. And so what this node is doing is it's saying to narrative, hey, we've found an item and this is the name of the item, and narrative will go through all of your quests and update them. And if you're using the UI, it will show all the updates on the UI as well. And we'll just destroy the pickup after you've taken it. Okay, last thing is in the construction script. I'm just going to take the text render, and I'm just going to set the text to be the item's name. And we'll compile and save. So now if you put one of the pickups in the level, you'll actually be able to type in an item name here. We'll just put egg. And now when I jump into the game, I can actually complete my quest. When I take the egg, narrative automatically updates that quest for me. And you can see quest succeeded. Now we're going to click on our pickup and just copy and paste it and make some more pickups. I'm going to make one called milk. And I'm going to make one called flour as well. Okay, so let's update our quest. So Philip wants you to find egg, milk, and flour in any order. So to do that, we're going to click on this and then click add multiple tasks. And this will let you add as many tasks as you want. And I'm just going to duplicate this, but we'll change the argument to flour and milk and update the descriptions. And then at the bottom for the main description, I'm just going to say find the ingredients for Philip. So we'll compile and save the quest, and if you jump in now, we should have to find all 3 of these ingredients and it will complete the quest. And you can see that's working perfectly. But we really want it so that Philip actually gives you the quest. So how do we do that? Well, we'll go into our character and just delete this begin quest here. And if we go into Philip's dialogue, we really want it to start the quest when you select this option here. And so all we have to do is add a narrative event. And an event is basically a bit of code that will fire when you select this option. And so we're going to select the begin quest event, and we're going to tell it to begin Philip's assistant. And you can see on the node, it actually says begins quest Philip assistant. You can also make your own events if you want. These are just the ones that come with narrative out of the box. And so if we walk up to Philip, we should now be able to hit the Sure I'll Help option, and it will start the quest for us, and we can now find the items. But you can see the quest succeeds once we find the items. We don't actually have to bring them back to Philip, so let's add that in as well. Okay, so I explained how we can use narrative events to begin a quest or do something when you select an option or when a dialogue node plays. But let me talk about narrative conditions now. So Philip really only needs to say this if you haven't actually encountered the quest yet. So we can add a condition to it, and there's one that comes with narrative, is quest started or finished. But then if you go down to conditions, you can check the box that says not. And we'll also select the Philip's assistant quest. And you can see now it says, is quest not started or finished Philip's assistant? So if we haven't ever encountered this quest, he'll offer the quest to us. And we're going to use another condition here. And this is why I've left the root node empty, by the way, so that we can select what line Philip actually plays. So I'm going to add a condition here. Is quest in progress Philip's assistant? And we'll say, have you got the items yet? And we only want him to say this if the quest is in progress, and that's why I've added the condition. We're going to drag out and add a couple of player responses. And for the text, we're just going to have, no, I don't have them yet, and yes, here they are. If we go back into our quest, we can see that our quest has succeeded once you find the items, but now we need to modify the quest so that you have to bring the items back to Philip. So if I hold Alt and click, it'll disconnect this for me. And then I can add another step to the quest. I'm going to write a bit of a description, and I'll give it the ID got items. Make sure you give it the ID got items. And then the next thing you need to do is select this option, right? And give the items to Philip. So we're going to give this an ID, give items. And there's actually a task that comes with narrative called play dialogue node. And it executes whenever a dialogue node plays. So just like our pickup executes whenever you take a pickup, the play dialogue node can be used for whenever a dialogue node plays. So I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to copy this give items ID, and I'll just paste it in here. And then I'll hook this up. And for the description, I'll just say, take the items back to Philip. And the task description, I'll just say, talk to Philip. And so if we look at our quest now, we have to find some items, and then we have to select the give items dialog option, right? And then that's the quest over. Make sure to compile and save everything, and we'll hit play. And now let's go and talk to Philip. Start the quest. Oh, and if we go back to him, he says, have you got the items? And unfortunately, we can select yes, even though I don't have the items yet. So we're going to fix that in a second, but let's just test it out. We'll find all the items, go back to Philip, and if I click on yes, quest succeeded. So there we go. The quest is working. To fix that problem we have, we want to add a condition to yes, here they are. And the condition is going to be is quest at state, Philip's assistant, and then the state is going to be got items. And so this will only show up if you're actually at this part of the quest. If you're not at this part of the quest, it will not show up. And so now check it out. If I start the quest, but I don't have the items yet, or if I just have only one of the items, for example, and I come back, it actually won't give me the option to give him the items. I need to find all of the items, and then I will have the option. There we go. You can see how very quickly you'll be able to create some very powerful games with narrative. And let me show you the next feature, which is going to be cinematic dialogues. So I'm going to come up here and add a level sequence, and I'll just put it in the narrative folder. I'm going to call it shot_Philip. Philip, and we're going to make a cinematic shot. So I'll just drag the sequencer down here, click this camera, and then I'm just going to point the camera at Philip, and I'm going to go to the focus distance and just set it to like 200, and that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and now we'll go back to Philip's dialogue. And if you click on class defaults, there's actually an array of speakers, and Philip is the only other speaker in the dialogue. But under a default shot, if we select shot Philip and compile and save, check this out. Narrative automatically plays the shot for you. You can see the shot is trained on Philip, and because it's a sequence, you can do whatever you want in here. You can have the camera move around or bob up and down. Whatever you want to do in Sequencer, you can do. If I duplicate the shot, I can make one for the player as well. I'll just point the camera over here, go back into the Philip dialogue, and now for the player talking shot, I'm just going to select the player. And same goes for the selecting reply shot. I'm going to make those both that shot. And so now when I'm selecting a reply or talking, narrative will play that shot for me. Check it out. Really cool. Find the items. Say, yes, here they are. So the cinematic features are really cool as well. But it doesn't end there. What if you want to add more speakers to a dialogue? Well, let's go ahead and make Philip's color blue, just so we can identify him a bit better. And then I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to add another speaker. And I'll say the other speaker is going to be called Juliet. And I will make her pink, just so I can tell who she is. And what you'll do now, when you've added a speaker, if you drag out, you'll actually see you can add a dialogue line for Juliet if you want. And so let's add a line for her. Let's say that we'll add another line for Philip first. So let's add one for Philip. And again, we're going to add another condition. We'll say, is quest succeeded? Philip's assistant. And we'll say, thanks again for your help. Have you met Juliet? And then if I drag out, I can add a line for Juliet. I might say, nice to meet you. So I'm just going to add another mesh for Juliet. So if I just click on the mesh and duplicate it, I'll just drag that out. And I'm going to select Quinn as the mesh. And then we'll just sort of point her over here. I'll duplicate shot Philip again, and then I'm going to make this one called shot Juliet. And then when I go to class defaults for Juliet, I'm going to select Juliet's shot. And so now if the quest is completed and I come back, Philip will say thank you, but Juliet also has a dialogue line. So if I go up to him, have you met Juliet? And you can see it cuts to Juliet when her line is being spoken as well. And you can add as many speakers as you like to one dialogue. The cool thing about the speaker system as well is, let's say that I want to quickly change this so it's actually Juliet that asks for help. Well, if you click on this node and then change the speaker to be Juliet, now when I do this, Juliet will actually be the one saying this line of dialogue. I'm going to walk up to them. And there you go. Now Juliet is saying that line of dialogue. So I'm going to change that back to Philip, and I'll just quickly explain some of the options here. You can add alternative lines, and narrative will automatically randomly select one of the alternatives or the main one, so that's good for adding variations so your dialogues aren't so robotic and predictable. You can also add montages. Narrative will play animations on the characters for you, or it will play dialogue, audio, stuff like that as well. Let me show you a few more cool things you can do. Let's go ahead and add curly brackets, and inside I'm going to put the text username. And this is dialogue variables. So because dialogues are blueprints, you can actually do a lot of really cool stuff. So I'm going to have curly brackets username, and then under the functions, I'm going to go get string variable, and then I'm going to do switch on string. I'll add a pin, and I'm going to type in username. It is case sensitive, so make sure you type it the same way I've typed it. And then what you can do is you can get the owning player of the dialogue. You can get their player state, and then you can get their name, and then you can return that. And so what that's going to do is it'll actually replace the username with the player's real username. When I walk up to Philip here, you can see it inserts my username into the dialogue. So it's really good for programmatically generating dialogue if you want to do that. By default, narrative waits longer depending on how short or long the text is to give player the time to read it, or it will wait until the sound is finished if you've selected a sound. But say you just want all dialogue options to last 5 seconds, you can just override get line duration and just type in 5, and now all of the dialogue lines will last 5 seconds. So there's a lot of functions you can override to change the functionality of how a narrative works. So watch this. Now every dialogue line will take exactly 5 seconds to finish, regardless of how short or long it is. The last thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to add some keyboard events for 1, 2, and 3. For 2 and 3, I'm just going to do save and load. Narrative has a very powerful save and load system that will save all of your quests, all of your dialogues are remembered. It remembers basically the entire state of your game. And there's also a quest journal that comes with narrative. You can make your own, but there is a demo one provided that you can use. So we're going to put that on the screen as well when the player presses 1. So now in the game, if you press 1, the quest journal will come up. And if I start a quest, we'll say, sure, I'll help, it'll be in your quest journal. And here's where things get really cool. So I'll take the egg, for example, and you can see in the quest journal, this is an active quest. And I should have filled out some more of the information, but you can see I found one of the ingredients, right? I'm going to press 2 on my keyboard to save my game. And now I'm going to close down the editor. I'm going to open it back up here. If I open the quest journal, you can see my quest isn't here. But now I'm going to press the 3 key to load my game in. And when I open the quest journal, narrative is exactly where I left it. And not only that, but all of the dialogues and everything are smart enough. They will just work right out of the box. If I come back up to the character, he says, have you got the items yet? He remembers that the quest has been started. So save games are not just the quest journal. The entire world remembers the state of your quests, which is very, very powerful. So go ahead and take the other items. And you'll notice the egg hasn't been removed, even though I've taken it. And I'll show you how to fix that in a second. Okay, last thing we'll do before we finish this video out. Philip remembers that I started his quest, but the items don't remember that they've been taken. So how do you actually make that happen in narrative? Well, it's a little bit different for networked games, but for single player games, all you have to do is get the narrative component. So you can actually get the narrative component in a single player game like that at any time. And you can then go ahead and assign on load complete. And this is a delegate that is called when the narrative data is all loaded in. So once you load your game, all we need to do is check if you've completed a task. If you've already found the item with this name in the past, then it doesn't need to be spawned in. So we'll just hook it up like that and then destroy the pickup. So when you take the pickup, we complete this task, right? But whenever you want, you can just check if the player's done something in the past, and it's all saved to disk in the save game. So if we compile this and save it, I'm going to press 3 to load my save game and watch what happens. The egg is taken because remember, it knows we've taken the egg before. I'm going to take the milk now, and if I press 2 to save, close the game, reopen it, I'm going to load my game by pressing 3. It remembers that I've taken both of those items. If I talk to Philip, he remembers the quest has been started. Very, very powerful. The last thing that you might have noticed is that if you take the items before you talk to Philip, it doesn't work. He'll say, go and get the items, but it's not smart enough right now to recognize that you've already taken the items. So how do you fix that? There are a couple of different ways to do it. The easiest one is if you click on the tasks here, you can just check this box that says retroactive. And narrative is smart enough to check if you've already found the stuff in the past, and it will complete the step for you automatically. And so now if I talk to Philip, well, I have to find the items first. And then if I talk to him, narrative will recognize you've already found the items, and it says take the items back to Philip. And you can just give them back right away. So that's one way to do it. It's probably the easiest way to do it. And the better way to do this is probably to just check if the player is actually doing the quest and not let them take the item if so. So in your pickup, simply drag out is quest in progress, promote to variable, click the little I, and then add a branch here. And then for your pickups, select Philip's assistant for the quest class. And so now you won't actually be able to take the pickups unless you're doing the quest. So if I start the quest, it will actually let me take them now. So that's another way to do it. That's probably the better way to do it. Other ways you might do it is in the quest, you could override the onQuestStarted function, and then you could actually spawn in the pickups so that they don't appear until the quest is actually started. That's another way you could do it. So here's what that looks like. I'm just spawning the pickups in when the quest starts. You could also do it at a new state in the quest or something like that. But I'll show you guys when I jump in. The items are no longer there. I deleted them. But when I start the quest, you can see the items have now been spawned in and I can take them. So quite a few ways to handle that sort of logic. If you want to ask any questions or get help with narrative, the Discord link will be in the description. There is tons of help available from other people, but also I will try to respond to every message within 24 hours of being posted in here.